A little late night Louie action. Wednesday, November 1st. We've turned the calendar to the 11th month of the year. We're getting into the dead heat of the season now. Trade deadline is behind us. We're going to talk about that and kind of react to the things that happened. I think there's a really underrated deal that took place yesterday that not a lot of people are talking about that could really be beneficial for a team that's trying to kind of make that push and maybe get over the top this year. They've got some things to straighten out. They're not playing the best football, but this guy has been playing really good football. We'll see if he can do the same for this team that he's been traded to. We'll talk about, all of the things that have transpired. We'll talk about week number 8. I know that's kind of in the rear view now as we kind of turn to Wednesday when you start focusing on the upcoming opponent. But I want to also tackle, yesterday was so crazy with the trade deadline that, didn't get to put this out in a timely manner. So we're going to get to week 8, put a bow on that. Josh McDaniels got fired at 1:00 in the morning yesterday. I was live last night and he gets canned, and I'm thinking people are joking with me because, when you're live and it gets late, people start trying to have fun at your expense. And I'm not living on my phone while I'm streaming. So, people are like, yo, Josh Daniels got fired. Like, no way, stop. It was crazy. We'll talk about that when as a matter of fact, you know what it is, man. Late night Louie. Let's get it in. LouieTeeNetwork podcast starts now. The Louie T Network is powered by MusicHead University. MusicHeads, classes in session. Turn me up. Enroll on YouTube now. Link is in the description. Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to the 371st installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I, of course, am your set man, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Got a jam-packed show for you tonight. As I mentioned, we're going to talk about this trade deadline here in a second. A lot of activity. And I've said this before about the trade deadline. You see more activity, and we have the last 2 years, this year and last year, when there are, and this one wasn't as busy as last year. Last year was crazy. It was nuts. This one a little bit more subdued, still more action than we're accustomed to seeing. If you go back in the NFL timeline, you'll see that not a lot of trades usually happen. There are significant ones, like Jimmy G once upon a time was traded from the Patriots to the 49ers. Like things like that happen, but you don't get a heavy volume of trades per se. It's usually just substantial ones that are impactful. Last year, we got a ton of them, even ones that weren't going to mold or shape a team in that particular season. But kind of building for the future. And you saw some of those again this year as well. But when there's a chance to win a chip, and just like I felt last year, there's an opportunity. You see teams going for it. I think you see the Eagles doing that. I think you see the 49ers doing that. I think you see the Bills doing that. I think you see teams looking at, you see Jacksonville kind of bolstering it. It's a small move, but it's them being forward thinkers, right? So I think you see teams kind of loading up saying, hey, I think we got a shot this season. Let's go for it. And it's that thought process that usually prompts you to make a move. And I think we saw that. Week 8 was a modest week. I think the teams that were supposed to win took care of business. There were 1 or 2 upsets, but for the most part, that it wasn't 7, right? 7 was crazy, full of upsets, underdogs winning left and right. That's not what this week was, but I digress. We're going to get to that. And then Josh McDaniels, and it's kind of where I want to start this podcast, was with Josh McDaniels and him getting canned. And I'll tell you a story. I told this story on my stream last night, my Washington stream, and I'll just go ahead and tell it to you guys again here because I know some of you weren't on that stream last night. And so, matter of fact, let's just go ahead and jump into it. Y'all know what it is. Let's get to the Gem Droppin Session, shall we? Yeah, I think we shall. Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind. Let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, Louie T-double-E. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. So, me and my buddy, I've told you this already. Buddy is a Raiders fan. we were talking yesterday. He called me yesterday morning, and it's a weird time for him because we usually have pockets that we communicate in, and that's not one of the pockets. So I knew he had something on his mind. So, I pick up the phone like, yo, what's good? He's like, yo, was that enough last night? I'm like, was what enough? Was that enough to get him out of there? I said, you talking about Josh McDaniels? He's like, yeah. I'm like, nah, y'all didn't even lose that bad. He was like, bro, you watched the game, though. It was bad. I'm like, yeah, it was bad. I mean, if you don't have that pick six, you score 7 whole points. Like, Jared Goff did everything in his power to make sure that game was more competitive. They turned it over 4 times, did the Lions, if I'm not mistaken. Or I might be confusing the Raiders. I think the Lions turned it over 3 or 4 times, and the Raiders couldn't do anything with it. Anyway, he said, yeah, but you can't forget about the week before with the Bears, though. You put those two together, man, it's bad. I'm like, yeah, it's bad, but I said, didn't he just get there? He's like, yeah, this is second year. I'm like, he's not firing him, halfway into year 2. And the GM. Because to me, if you fire Josh McDaniels, you got to fire Ziegler, the GM as well. Like, you can't fire one without the other. They're tied at the hip. So he was like, yeah, I think it's enough. I said, now, we both know, and these were my exact words to him. I said, we both know Mark Davis ain't no damn football guy. He just kind of running the show. And this is why he wanted to hire John Gruden to a 10-year contract, because he just wanted to hire somebody that he could trust, wipe his hands clean, and let them handle the football side of things while he's over there managing, the business side of things. Like, I don't want nothing to do with the football stuff. And obviously, Gruden would have still been there had it not been for, all the off the field stuff that got him canned. And I thought it was a similar mindset when they brought in the New England Patriot dudes. Hey, I'm going to bring in these Patriot guys. They're going to bring that Patriot mentality here, the Patriot way, if you will. And I can just back off, let them do their thing, and I'm going to go over here and do my business thing. But nobody has been able to replicate the Patriot way. You want to know why? Because you don't have Tom Brady. That's why. And there's only one Tom Brady. So you can't replicate something that requires the greatest quarterback in NFL history to be on your team. Yeah, it's funny because everybody wants to credit Belichick with so much during that stretch. And while he deserves credit, I think we've seen now Belichick is a mastermind defensive, coordinator or defensive. He is a one-of-a-kind defensive mastermind is how I would phrase it. They don't make them like Belichick anymore in terms of being able to put together a game plan week after week to stop different offenses and kind of be like a shapeshifter, if you will. Like, that's the beauty of Bill Belichick, if you want to be honest. It was the ability, and even on offense, he had something to say about what they did on offense, and it was the ability of the Patriots to be shapeshifters, right? To be malleable is what I would always say. To take the upcoming opponent and treat them independent of anything they've done all season long. And that's hard for teams to do because a lot of teams like to go with what their scheme is, right? They're so scheme dependent. This is what we do. So I'm going to go out here and I'm going to bang my head up against this brick wall because you got the number 1 rush defense, but I like to run it. So I'm going to go out here and I'm going to try to impose my will, even though the numbers state that this is not a good idea. Well, you know what Belichick would say? To hell with the run this week. They got the 27th ranked pass offense or defense, but they got the number 1 ranked rush defense. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to throw it 47 times this week. And you know what they're going to do the next week when they're playing the 31st ranked rush offense or rush defense and the number 3 pass defense in the league? They're going to run it 49 times. That's the beauty of Bill Belichick. And he does the same thing defensively. Is he'll put together a scheme that limits your team this week, whether that means taking his best corner and putting him on a tight end if need be, or if that means, having all these complex looks, putting more on the plate of his defenders to communicate. They're playing, zone on this side, man on the other side. They're playing, some form of man match, some form of zone match, with a blitz on the side. They're playing cover 6, cover 2 on one side, cover 4 on the other side. And he's putting all of this on his players to be able to cover. A lot of times with him, it's different forms of cover 1, but whatever the case may be, that's the beauty of Bill Belichick. But he needs Tom Brady. That's evident, I think, now. And he doesn't pick players well. And we've seen that over the life of, even when Brady was there, they didn't do a great job of drafting. Brady covered up a lot of the mistakes. Well, Brady's no longer there, and they can't cover up the mistakes. And so I don't think anybody can duplicate nor replicate what the Patriot way was for the better part of 2 decades in New England. That said, I told him, there's no way your owner is going to fire these guys 2 years in. It's just not happening. And he's like, yeah, I know you're right, man. It's so frustrating, man. And everything that I've been saying has been surrounded the lack of direction. Like, they don't have any direction. Like, you watch a Raiders game and you have absolutely no clue what they're trying to accomplish. They have no identity. They have no quarterback. Their first round pick from this year has been a ghost. They lack any direction. I remember in the offseason, their players saying, I don't know what our offensive scheme is supposed to be about. Guys like Devontae Adams was like, I'm confused. I don't even know. It's above my pay grade. I don't even know what we're doing. Guys were confused. It reminded me of the Patriots last year when they didn't have a real offensive coordinator. And they asked Ty Montgomery, hey, what is it that you guys are trying to accomplish on offense? He's like, I don't even know. I don't even know what we're doing. And it's above my pay grade. I'm just going to stay out of it, but I'm confused. And when you watch the Raiders, that's what you saw, a product that looked confused. Guys that just were out playing ball, but really not sure what the hell they were supposed to be doing. It looked disjointed. They didn't look like a team. There was no complimentary football. And they looked lost. And you could see this thing was being run into the ground in Josh McDaniels fashion, just like he did in Denver once upon a time. And it's not a coincidence that the same exact thing happened. He got fired halfway into year 2 as the Denver Broncos coach once upon a time because he did the exact same thing. He came in cocky and arrogant, got rid of the starting quarterback. Does this sound familiar to you? Got rid of Jay Cutler, got rid of Brandon Marshall, ran the organization into the ground, and they got rid of him as quickly as they could possibly get rid of him. He was a cancer and he was toxic to that organization. He came in, he started cheating immediately because that's the Patriot way, got caught cheating. And it was, it's funny listening to Williams tell the story on that podcast with Brandon Marshall, DJ Williams tell the story. Like, yo, we came out that season and we were 5-0. And he was like, I thought we were good, but I'm like, man, are we really that nice? I mean, we was beating everybody's ass. We even beat the Patriots, the first 5 games of the season. And that's when the Patriots were at the peak of their superpowers. He was like, yo, we at the lunch table sitting down talking like, yo, we nice, yo. But he's like, are we really that nice? And then they got popped for cheating in week 6. And then they lost like almost every game the rest of the season. And he was like, okay, I didn't think we were that nice. And, things went downhill from there. And he comes to Vegas. He immediately starts turning the roster over, bringing in all these ex-Patriot players, and you can see where this thing was going. You're like, bro, why are you bringing in all these ex-Patriot players? Like, that's not the way to do this. And got rid of Derek Carr. That ended really ugly, and it didn't need to end that way. You went out and got Devontae Adams, but he wanted to play with Derek Carr. But you got rid of the guy that he was comfortable being in Vegas with. So you know he's going to be disgruntled after that. And he asked for a change of scenery prior to the trade deadline. They told him, we're not trading you. So they essentially are holding him hostage, which I don't have a problem with that. You paid him all that money. It's your choice to do what you want to do with him, but he's clearly not happy. And you can see the players, Josh Jacobs after the game, I don't know if you guys saw the quote, but they said, what can you do to turn this offense around? He's like, that's not my job. That was it. Like, and he said it with the straightest of faces, like, it's not my job. Like, I don't really care, but it's not my job. Don't ask me. Go ask the head coach. So they were all kinds of disjointed. And every game I would watch them, especially on prime time, and we've seen the Raiders on prime time because of their new stadium and being in Vegas. We've seen them on prime time like 3 times already this year. And every time we would, after the game, I would tell you guys, boy, they lack direction. This is just, they're wandering aimlessly. And I don't know if you guys saw the story. I don't believe this. This is when social media goes wrong, right? I don't believe this to be, the reason why he got fired. But I've seen the story. I'm just going to, again, I always tell you guys, I bring this stuff to your front door and I allow you to do whatever you would like to do with it. I don't make the decisions. I just make sure that you're informed, okay? So I saw a tweet that's going around socials. I don't believe it. First of all, let me just state this. I don't think this is why he got fired. He got fired because he's a terrible head coach. He's horrible with personnel. Him and Ziegler were running this thing into the ground. They had no direction. They were trying to turn it into the Patriots West, and they were doing a horrible job of doing that. Like Billy Ho and Jakob Johnson and Jacoby Myers. And I mean, we keep going on and on and on with all the ex-Patriot players that they brought over there. You're like, bro, you're not the Patriots. Stop it. Stop. Jimmy Garoppolo, I could keep going on and on and on. Stop. The story goes, Josh McDaniels is a huge Halloween guy, okay? And so he dressed up as Raiders owner Mark Davis for Halloween. Mark Davis, saw him and was like, oh, thought it was funny, kiki and ha-ha, and went along with it, even though it was eating him up inside, right? So apparently one of his favorite things to do is eat PF Chang's, right? It sounds like a ritual that he does every day. So he ordered Josh McDaniels PF Chang to go along with the costume that he had on. And, he sat down with him. He said, now your costume's complete. And as he gave him a fortune cookie and said, hey, open this. And he opened up the fortune cookie and inside of it, it said, you're fired. I don't believe that. I think somebody made that up. But if that did actually happen, it couldn't have happened to a better coach. It couldn't have happened to a better guy. And I could actually see Josh McDaniels' stupid face reading that thing and looking like, are you serious right now? And I could see, Mark Davis with his pumpkin pie haircut, from Dumb and Dumber. Keep your mouth shut if you knew it was good for you. Hand me the booze, you pumpkin pie haircutted freak. I could see him just sitting there with a straight face going, yeah, buddy, get your shit and get out. Anyway, I didn't think he had the balls. Long story short, I didn't think he had the balls to pull the trigger. This was necessary. I'm watching a proud Raiders fan base dying slowly, watching this shit burn in slow motion. Slow motion for me. Slow motion for me. Moving slow motion for me. That thing was moving in slow motion and it was burning. And I'm watching Raiders fans slowly die. There's such a prideful fan base. I know too many Raiders fans that were watching that shit and just going, man, what are we doing? Every week, what are we doing? And then they go and hire Antonio Pierce. And I love it. I don't know if it's going to work. But you know what he's giving off, right? He's giving off Dan Campbell vibes because he's an ex-player. And first of all, anybody that knows Tonio as a player, and you know, I know him very, very well. He was homegrown product that one of the guys that I always felt like got away from us, that shouldn't have gotten away from us. He's on that list with Ryan Clark and several others that should have remained in Washington that didn't because of Daniel Snyder. But we all know him to be a passionate guy. He's a leader everywhere he goes. So I'm not shocked he's getting this opportunity. And I asked my buddy, we were talking because he texts me, you know, in the middle of the night because he knows I'm always awake. So he texted me the story that Josh McDaniels got fired. And I guess he was assuming I would see it when I woke up, but I wasn't asleep. This was like 3-something in the morning. So I immediately texted him back like, yeah, I talked about our story. I shared our story on the stream. And I said, you know, I told him I was shocked. I didn't think they were going to do this. I didn't think Mark Davis had the balls to do this. This is absolutely the right call. And, you know, we're going back and forth and we're talking. And I said, well, who's the interim coach? I assumed it'd be Patrick, the defensive coordinator, Patrick Graham. So I said, who's the interim? Is it Patrick Graham? And he's like, nah, it's Antonio Pierce. And I'm like, I thought I saw him on the sidelines on Monday night, but I didn't think about in what capacity he was there. So I asked him, what was he coaching? What was his title? And the man told me inside linebackers coach. So he wasn't the linebackers coach. He was the inside linebackers coach. So I'm like, you got to be a guy that carries a lot of weight in that locker room. They respect you to no end for you to be promoted to interim head coach from inside linebackers coach. Okay? It takes a lot for them to identify you as the guy to take over for the remaining 9 games of the season. But then you listen to him in his introductory press conference, essentially, that he had today, and you know why they did it. You know, and we'll see if they respond to him. I always go back to they should have never moved on from Rich Bisaccia. He had the pulse of that team. He was a direct extension of John Gruden, and that's how that team was built. The way it was built in that moment, they had everything they needed. They didn't need to pivot and go in a different direction. They got what they deserved. Now I want to see what Antonio, I mean, he doesn't have a lot to work with. For starters, they've benched Jimmy Garoppolo. Again, right thing to do. Going out and getting Jimmy Garoppolo. And I told them in the moment when they did it, this is a waste of money. But again, when they're trying to do that whole Patriot thing, you can't tell them nothing. And so they're benching him. They're going to play the rookie, Aiden O'Connell. Right thing to do. All right, let's figure out if this guy can play. If he can't, we'll need a quarterback. And if he can't, we'll stink. And then we can go get us a quarterback in a draft. And there'll be plenty of options. You may not get to Caleb Williams or Drake May, but you'll be right in that neighborhood for Michael Penix or somebody else, you know, McCarthy from Michigan, one of these other quarterbacks, and you'll have a shot to hit the reset button. But I'll tell you this much. The Raiders are going to win this week. Anytime you get a new change in coach, that first week, there's a boost. Raiders are going to win this game. I don't know how the hell they're going to win the game, but they're going to win the game. I just know that much. I want to see. I'm anxious to see what Antonio Pierce. I'm rooting for Tonio. See what he does. You know, again, gives off those Dan Campbell vibes, ex-player, highly passionate. One of those guys that can really relate to the players in that locker room, and you can hear it in his voice. And again, it's not a coincidence that he was the guy. They could have went with one of the coordinators. They could have went with Patrick Graham as the new interim head coach, but they didn't. We went with Antonio Pierce. Interesting. Let's go to while we're here. I want to go ahead and knock out the trade deadline too, and we'll get a 2-for-1 special here on the Gem Droppin Session. So we all know about the Chase Young trade, 3rd round pick. Ronald Rivera did say that because it's funny, they haven't posted anything on social media. They haven't like talked about like how they've done with Montez Sweat. You know, they posted a graphic on socials and it's on the team website. And, you know, they've posted a thank you to Montez. They haven't done anything like that of the sort to Chase, but it makes sense now. The 49ers are on a bye week, so things are moving a lot slower for them. There's no urgency because they don't have a game this week, unlike the Bears, who do have a game this week, unlike the, you know, Packers, or rather the Bills, who do have a game this week, and teams who made a trade that have a game this week. So you have to expedite that process. They don't have to do that in San Francisco. So that's taking a little bit longer. Obviously, everything is pending a physical, which I'm not sure Chase Young has taken yet for the San Francisco 49ers. So they can't really announce that as being finalized yet. But we know about that trade, third-round pick, a compensatory third-round pick for the 49ers going to Washington in exchange for the former number 2 overall pick, Chase Young. Also, Washington trades their other first-round defensive end, Montez Sweat, to the Chicago Bears in exchange for a 2024 second-round pick. So those were the ones that were kind of like out in front of the news cycle yesterday. It made a lot of waves. And I've already said, and I've done that on numerous programs. So I don't need to rehash that here. That would be redundancy at this point. So you want to know how I feel about those trades? Just go watch the 16 different videos I did yesterday on those two moves and what I think it means for Washington. I will say this because I haven't talked about it from the other end of the trade. I did talk about it with the Montez Sweat trade because at that time we didn't know Chase Young was being traded. So I jumped on, and the first thing I talked about was from the Bears angle. I think they're getting a good football player that his best football, I think, may still be ahead of him if you're able to coach him up correctly. And he's durable. He's a hell of a run defender, one of the better run defending defensive ends in the NFL. He's long, he's rangy, he's got everything you're looking for. He's athletic. He just needs to be coached up, right? Put in positions to succeed. But they're gonna enjoy Montez Sweat and what he brings to the table. He just never ever gave first round pick vibes in Washington for whatever reason. He never actually gave us. He's never had a double-digit sack season. He's consistent though. You know you're gonna get 7 to 9 somewhere in there, and you know he's gonna stop the hell out of the run. You know he's gonna show up every weekend and play ball for you. And so there are things that you can count on with Montez Sweat, and that's why the value is there for a second-round pick, because you don't know what you're going to get with that second-round pick. You know what you're getting with Montez Sweat. The Bears seem to love to fork over second-round picks. They did it last year for Chase Claypool. That obviously did not work out, but that has not stopped them from going to the well once again and trying to fork over a second-round pick. I know some Bears fans are torn because while on one end they need pass rush. I've talked about this even going into the season. Before the season started, I'm like, they did all these things in the offseason, got a young secondary. Jalen Johnson had requested a trade because he was looking for a contract extension and he hadn't gotten it. And so he was on the block, but they didn't find a suitor for him. And so hopefully they get that done because he's a really good young corner in this league. And I was thinking in the moment when they traded him to Chicago, I'm like, why y'all didn't get them to throw Jalen Johnson into that deal? But we weren't looking to have to pay anybody. That's the problem. Like part of the reason we're moving Tez and we're moving Chase is we didn't want to fork over the cash. So if you get a guy like Jalen Johnson, you're trading for a guy essentially that wants to be paid. The reason he's trying to get out of Chicago is the reason that he's coming to Washington to get paid. So I get that. I understand it. You want the draft capital. You want the young, cheap labor. You want the younger players. I get all of that. But that's going to be a good move for them. But some Bears fans are like, bro, we're not ready to win yet. Why are you trading us? We should have been sellers, not buyers at this trade deadline. What are we doing? And to them, I say, you're not wrong. But if you think you're going in the right direction and you spent all that money on defense, TJ Edwards and to Tremaine Edmonds, and the secondary is relatively young and talented on that back end when healthy, really the defensive front is the problem right now. You don't have any dogs up there. So getting a guy like Montez Sweat kind of changes that drastically. I think you might have some guys inside on the interior that can play a little ball, but you got nothing on the outsides. Like Yannick Ngakoue is the best you got, you know, and he's at this point, he's been on 55 teams in 6 years. So, and there's a reason that he's like the Brandon Cooks of defensive ends. So this is a good move if you feel like we're close to what? It sounds like Washington when Bruce Allen was here, close to what? But so I get it from the perspective of the Bear fan that says, what are we doing? Why are we buying at the deadline? We should be selling. We're not close to anything. We don't even know if Justin Fields is the quarterback of the future or not. What are we doing? And on the other end, you're getting a guy, and if you can get him signed to a contract extension, which I'm pretty sure if you gave up a second round pick, you fully intend on signing Montez Sweat to a contract extension, you're getting a guy that's young, still going into the prime of his career, that's going to be able to perform for you for the next 4 to 5 years, and you feel good about adding that kind of a piece for a second round pick onto your defense as you try to turn this thing around and turn into a winner. So from the 49ers standpoint, with the Chase Young deal, you're trying to win a championship. This could be a 9-game rental for all we know, right? We'll see what happens with the 49ers and if they're able to get it done this year, and if they're impressed enough with Chase Young to pay him what he's looking for. Or you could turn it into a Von Miller situation with the Rams a couple of years back when they won the Super Bowl. They rented Von Miller for, 6-7 games, whatever it was, won the Super Bowl, and then let him walk. That could be what Chase Young turns out to be for you. You use him up for this stretch run. You get to the postseason. You hope that him and Nick Bosa and, Eric Armstead and Javon Hargrave and all of these guys that you have on that line form this ridiculous group up front that teams just can't deal with one-on-one. You can't double team everybody, and you're able to get as much as you can out of them, and then you might let them walk. Or you could say, nah, we want to pair you with your old college buddy for the next 5 to 7 years, and let's see how that goes. We'll see. But to get him for a third rounder, I thought it was good on Washington's part to get that kind of compensation. Essentially, the 49ers are probably looking at it like a fourth. Again, glass half full, glass half empty. If you're a glass half full guy, then it's a third. It's a comp pick. It's a third round pick. If you're glass half empty, they got us for a fourth, right? For Chase Young, the former number 2 overall pick. I think it's a win on both sides, all right? They think this is a win on both sides, honestly speaking, because you weren't going to get any more than that for Chase Young, which a lot of Washington fans seem to be hung up on. I'm going to talk about that more on the show later on tonight. But let's get into a trade that I thought was the one that went under the radar and nobody was talking about. Buffalo traded with Green Bay, and Buffalo received cornerback Rasul Douglas and a 2024 fifth-round pick in exchange for a 2024 third-rounder. Okay, so in essence, Buffalo got Rasul Douglas and the Packers 2024 fifth-rounder, and the Packers got the Bills 2024 third-round pick. To me, that is an excellent deal on the part of the Bills because they're lacking in the secondary with the injury to Tre'Davious White. They're hurting on that back end. And while they've had some guys stand up like Benford and guys like that stand up, and if Josh Norman, who they had to actually play, is out there on your roster for you because you don't have any confidence in your former first-round pick. And it's funny, Washington fans think we're the only team that picks first-rounders that don't work out, that can't get on the field. They picked Kaiir Elam in the first round out of Florida last year, and the guy is a healthy scratch every single week. There's nothing physically wrong with him. They just don't think he can play. They're not putting him on the field. And Bills fans are fed up, with the fact that, hey, we spent the first round pick on this kid and he can't even see the field. But that's them telling you, we don't think he's any good. We don't trust him out there. Rasul Douglas is a ball magnet. This is a guy that finds himself around the football, and if you make a mistake, generally you pay for that mistake in the vicinity of Rasul Douglas. Now, understand he is no speed demon. Don't put him in situations where he's got to hold up one-on-one with somebody that can run. But if you put him in some zone coverage, key in the eyes of the quarterback, and staying deeper than the deepest, and he's got help over the top, and he can be aggressive, he's a problem. I love this move for Buffalo. Really do. That's a team that feels like, hey, we're one or two pieces away. Rasul Douglas is one of those pieces that could definitely help them. How about this? I told you, you see teams going for it, right? Detroit's another example. I love this trade for them. Donovan Peoples-Jones, they get him from Cleveland in exchange for a 6th-round pick in 2025. So not even in the upcoming draft in 2024, but the following year's draft in 2025, a 6th-rounder. And so the Browns, I remember telling you guys in the offseason, man, they got a lot of receivers. I don't even know what they're going to do with all these guys. Similar to the Jets when, went out and got all those players and they ended up having to trade away one of them and Mecole Hardman. You just had too many guys. Just like when they got Dalvin Cook. And I asked Dalvin, I was like, bro, why are you going to New York? I mean, the only way it makes sense for you is if Breece Hall isn't healthy. And by the time he got there, Breece Hall was already fully cleared to be back at practice. So what did you think was going to happen? They got running backs. And that's without Izzy Abakanda being healthy and out there. But they got running backs for days. What did you think you were going to actually do? So then he started asking for a trade, but it's too late for that, right? Like, you should have never went to the Jets, dude. You had options, and you picked the Jets because you saw a chance to win a championship with Aaron Rodgers. Anyway, I love this for the Lions. Getting another receiver. I don't think they got enough talent at receiver. Not that Donovan Peoples-Jones is going to move the needle a whole hell of a lot, but it just adds another piece to that receiving room. If Amon-Ra St. Brown can't go, you're not just stuck. Donovan Peoples-Jones can go out and catch the football for you. He can provide you. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Marvin Jones was a guy they brought in as a veteran that they thought would be able to give them something. He's really been non-existent this year. Donovan Peoples-Jones, I think, can fill that void that they were expecting to get from Marvin Jones. I like that move. Again, another team that has Super Bowl aspirations, making a move, just a subtle one, but yet another move to kind of give them a little bit of an edge as they head down the stretch run. Same thing with Jacksonville. They trade for offensive lineman Ezra Cleveland with the Minnesota Vikings, give up a 2024 6th-round pick. Again, just giving yourself more insurance. It's a war of attrition, this NFL thing is. And so it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Guys are going to go down. You just want to make sure you've got enough depth to be able to handle whatever comes your way. Adding a guy like Ezra Cleveland gives you an opportunity should you have an injury or two to that offensive line. So nothing wrong with that, right? We talked about the Vikings ad nauseum. What are they going to do? Are they going to add a quarterback? Kirk Cousins done for the season, Achilles injury. We know about that. Just had the surgery. Everything went well there. What are they going to do? I thought they were going to do nothing because I've already laid out for you who are you going to get. You could inquire about Jameis Winston in New Orleans. You could inquire about Ryan Tannehill, but it sounds like they're being stubborn in Tennessee. And from what I'm hearing, Mike Vrabel's like, when he's healthy, he's our starter. And I'm like, Mike, what are you doing, man? Stop it, Mike. Stop. Seriously, Mike, look at me. Mike, stop. But you could have called Tennessee. But again, what is it going to cost you? You were 4-4. You weren't 6-2. You weren't 7-1. This isn't a championship caliber team. But if you want to announce to the rest of the roster that we're not packing it in for the season, you got to go get a quarterback because the guys on your roster currently, you're not winning with Nick Mullins. I'm actually a fan of Jaren Hall, but he's not ready to lead you, right? So they traded for Josh Dobbs. I think that's a good move, and you only have to give up a 6th-round pick next year, which makes a ton of sense for Arizona. Kyler Murray's either ready to come back, and if he's not, they said, hey, he's either ready to come back this week. If not this week, next week, we'll play the rookie for a week, Clayton Tune. We're 1-6, 1-7. What do we give a shit? You know what I'm saying? If we can get something for Josh Dobbs, hell, let's get our pick back. I think they might have given a 6th-round pick up to Cleveland to get him, right? Let me get my 6th-round pick back. So, and Dobbs has shown I can run an NFL offense competently. I'm not going to win you any games, but if you do enough around me, we can win some shit. We'll see. We'll see. So we know about Atlanta, again, losing, and they're in a division where, hey, anything can happen. All bets are off. They had an opportunity to win. We'll talk about how they blew that opportunity on Sunday, but Grady Jarrett's done for the season. So you lose your best defensive lineman on the interior. And so they go out and they get Kentavious Street from the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, they're so deep on that defensive line. I didn't even know Kentavious Street was on their team. And they also get a 2025 seventh rounder in exchange for a 2024 sixth rounder. So we know how he's going to at some point flip that 2024 sixth rounder in addition to something else to get somebody that he wants. But Atlanta adding some depth to that defensive line in the absence of their best defensive lineman. We know about the Leonard Williams trade to the Seahawks. I'm still baffled at how they were able to get as much as they were able to get, that being the Giants. But from what I've been told, the Giants are eating a ton of that contract for the most part. So the Seahawks are kind of getting off easy in terms of financial obligations. So that's where the compensation comes into play. We're eating the financial aspect of this. So you got to compensate us. It's just like what I talked about with the Amari Cooper Dallas Cowboys deal, in the sense that the Browns were doing the Cowboys a favor by eating essentially Amari Cooper's entire contract. And so since they were doing that, the Cowboys couldn't then ask for greater compensation. We all know Amari Cooper's worth more than what the Cowboys ended up getting for him, like, fourth round pick or some shit like that. And they were like, what? But the reason that the Browns could get away with that is because we taking on all of this finance. You got yourself into a hole with Amari Cooper. And Amari told you, I'm not getting a COVID shot. Jerry, you can kiss my ass. And Jerry's like, who you talking to? I'm talking to your bitch ass. Okay, I'm going to send you Cleveland then. And at that point, they were like, we don't care about the draft compensation. Just eat the money and we good. We just want them gone. Don't nobody talk to Jerry Jones like that. You got to be a good old boy to play for Jerry Jones. You can't talk back. So it's a similar situation here in with the Seattle Seahawks. Like the Giants are eating the bread, so you got to compensate me for that. So, but yeah, that's essentially all the trades. All the other trades that have happened, we already talked about them, when they happened. But those are some interesting trades, and for the most part, all of the trades, with the exception of maybe Atlanta, are with teams that have a chance to win a Super Bowl. And the Bears, they're doing it a little bit differently. I don't know if I necessarily agree with the approach that they're taking, but I don't hate it. Like, stand for something, have some kind of ideology. Like, I see what they're doing. They want known commodities, right? They wanted Chase Claypool. They see a young up and coming player, and they were willing to give up a second round pick because they felt like, hey, we won't get a guy in the second round that looks like Chase Claypool, who's already played in the league, that can help us right now. Same thing with Montez Sweat. They see a guy, a defender at a position of need. Instead of going in the draft and finding a guy in the second round, they look at the position and say, hey, we got a guy right here that's a proven commodity in this league. We know he can play. We know his best football still may be ahead of him. Let's go ahead and give up a second round pick. We won't find that guy in the second round of the NFL draft. So I don't have a problem with that. I just have a problem with, does he fit your timeline? Montez Sweat is going to be 28 years old. And are you ready to win in the next 3 years? That's what you got to ask yourself. If not, does he fit your timeline? And that's why some Bears fans might be like, what are we doing? But we'll see. Anyway, I digress. Y'all know what it is. Go ahead and get your skates on. Get your skates on. Y'all know what we about to do. Week 8, slate skating. I got my rollerblades on. And I'm feeling good, man. Pavement outside is nice and smooth. Nice and smooth. Let's get to it, man. I'll give y'all a second to get those skates on as we go around the National Football League in week number 8. All right, let's do the damn thing. So we'll start with my Commanders falling to the Philadelphia Eagles 38-31. Washington, for the second time this year, scored 31 points against the Philadelphia Eagles in a month's time. And for the second time this season, Washington has lost while scoring 31 points against the Philadelphia Eagles, which means the defense hasn't done its part in either game. You scored 31 in this league. Again, I can't stress this enough. 9 times out of 10, you scored 31, you're supposed to win. We've scored 31 twice and haven't won either time against the Eagles. Now, that says something about the Eagles and how good they are offensively. It also talks about how bad Washington's defense has been this season. 38 points, 4 touchdown passes given up to Jalen Hurts. A gimpy, impaired Jalen Hurts. Not enough pressure was applied to him by Jack Del Rio and his defense, and he carved their asses up. So did A.J. Brown. I mean, Arthur Juan Brown is on a mission right now. 6 consecutive games of $125, set a new NFL record for the most consecutive games of 125 yards receiving or more. He was previously tied with Calvin Johnson and somebody else at 5. I think it might have been like Randy Moss or somebody like that, but he's now set the record. He's all by his lonesome atop that leaderboard there, and he doesn't look like he's showing any signs of stopping anytime soon. So we'll see what happens in that massive matchup they've got coming up against the Dallas Cowboys in week number 9. But for Washington, it's the same old song. You're able to go out and execute against a tough Eagles football team. You score points, you get on them early, and this was even worse than the first game. In the first game, at least the Eagles responded every time Washington scored. And so it never felt like the game was getting out of hand. It was 17-7, I believe, was the furthest out Washington got in the first game. Eagles got a field goal before the half to make it 17-10 and ultimately tied it up at 17. In this game, we ended up at the same point, right? 17-10 at half, tied at 17 at one point. We ended up at the same spot, but how we got there was drastically different. Washington was up 14-3. The defense was actually playing well early in the game, and the offense had a chance. It was 4th and 1, and that's where the game changed. It was 4th and 1 from the Eagles' 35-yard line. All right, so it would have been a 53-yard field goal. They could have kicked it, but why? As you can see, 31 points wasn't enough. Why kick a field goal? I agree with the move. They should have gone for it. I didn't like the play call. It was a bad play call, if you ask me. It was incomplete. First of all, they went empty on 4th and 1. That's the NFL that we live in now anyway. But that still pisses me off to no end, because the more and more football that I watch around the league, the more and more I notice everybody's running out of gun down by the goal line. That's not a Washington issue. That's a league-wide epidemic, right? That is what teams are moving towards. Less teams are getting under center and imposing their will on the opposition. More teams are going finesse with a gun run at the 2, at the 1, which is just asinine to me. But we went empty. We took it a step further. We said there's no threat of the run, which is disgusting. And we didn't convert. And from that point on, the game was never the same. The Eagles went down, scored a touchdown. We got a field goal before the half. But again, the game was never the same. Ron Rivera had a chance to challenge at 17-10 on a 4th and 4 that was incomplete. He didn't challenge. The Eagles got away with it. They scored a touchdown. I could go on and on about this game, but the bottom line is they made plays when plays needed to be made. They picked Sam Howell off late in this ball game, who was magnificent. 4 touchdown passes, 1 interception, led all passers in week 8 with his 397 yards, set a Washington Commanders record for the most completions in the first half of a game with 24. He was carving up this Eagles defense left and right, threw a touchdown pass to 4 different receivers in this game. Same thing that Jalen Hurts did. No, I think he had 2 to A.J. Brown in this game, I think. Julio Jones caught 1. Devontae Smith caught 1. A.J. Brown caught 2, I believe, is how that went for the Eagles. But nonetheless, he had that one mistake, did Sam Howell, and the Eagles capitalized. And then on a 4th down, after the officials, we could get into that, but we're not, did something really questionable. They sacked Sam Howell 1 time. He came into the game, sacked 40 times, was on pace for an NFL record, 96 sacks. Was only sacked once, but that 1 sack was a big one by Hassan Reddick. Big-time players make big-time plays at big-time junctures of the game, and he did exactly that, pretty much ending the game with that sack, forced fumble, and the Eagles go on to win 38-31. You go to the next game on the slate, Patriots, Dolphins, more family business. That was NFC East family business. This is AFC East family business. Miami Dolphins sweep, complete, just like the Eagles did, complete the season sweep of the New England Patriots, 31-17. The Patriots hung in for a little while early in this ball game, but they just don't have enough offensive firepower, and that's abundantly clear. This thing was 7-7 in the second quarter, but then the Dolphins started to pull away, and by the time we got to the fourth quarter, this was a 24-10 game. Now, it actually was 24-17 at one point in the fourth, but never did I think the Patriots were going to find a way to steal this game, and of course, they did not do that. The Patriots are now 2-6 on the season. Mac Jones was solid in this game, not bad. There was rumors of him getting benched just 3 weeks ago. And since then, he's beaten Buffalo, and he was highly competitive against the Dolphins. And so I think he's put that to rest, at least for now. But Tua and this Dolphins offense continues to light up NFL scoreboards. Tua, 30 of 45, 324, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Waddle was the guy in this game, 7 catches, 121 yards, and a touchdown. And they just continue to just be a dynamic offense that's hard to stop. And it starts with Tyreek Hill and his ability to get vertical. He had another long touchdown catch in this game. And then Waddle is another guy that stretches the football field vertically. And then when you fall asleep behind the wheel, Cedric Wilson can get you. We know the run game with Raheem Mostert is problematic. And they're still missing their all-world rookie running back, Devin Achane. And when he comes back, it's just going to add another element of speed to that offense that's already the fastest in the NFL, and it's not even close. So this Dolphins offense continues to be prolific, but Dolphins fans don't want to hear that. They're like, this is what we do to teams like New England. What happens when we see Buffalo or we see the Chiefs? And this is what we're going to find out. They play the Chiefs. Chiefs are coming off of a loss. We'll talk about that here in a second. And these are the teams that punch the Dolphins in the mouth. They don't handle this kind of team that they're going to be playing over in Germany on Sunday well. These are the kind of games that Dolphins fans have been complaining. We're soft. We don't handle the upper echelon teams well. They haven't beaten anybody this season, I don't think, to this point with a winning record, if I'm not mistaken yet. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. That'll be a great contest. As for the Patriots, this loss didn't come without a cost, right? Like adding insult to injury. They lost Kendrick Bourne, the best receiver that they have for the season, late in this game, probably with 3-4 minutes left in the game. He goes up to make a catch, and boom, there goes his Achilles, and so or ACL, one or the other. I think it was his ACL, and he's done for the season. That's going to be a devastating blow to an offense that was already struggling to put points on the scoreboard. He was their best offensive weapon this season, and now he is out. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Devontae Parker left this game with a concussion, so they're hurting right now, are the Patriots at receiver, if he can't go this week, along with Kendrick Bourne being out. But Dolphins are now 6-2. The Patriots are the inverse at 2-6. Jets and Giants, these are the kind of games that hurt your eyes. It's not for the faint of heart. If you got a weak stomach, this is not the game for you. If you love soccer, then this is the game that you want to tune into, because it was a lot of kicking of the football in this game. I think the two teams combined for over 20 punts in this game. I think they set an NFL record for the most punts in the first half of a football game. It was a disaster. I'm gonna count the amount of punts in this game, because this shit was comical. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 punts in the first half. 15 punts in the first half. NFL record. We continue. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. 24 combined punts between the two teams. I'm not done with the kicking. All right. Either attempted or made field goals. So we're continuing with the theme of kicking the football here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if they weren't punting, they were kicking a field goal or they were turning it over. It was a mess. The weather was nasty, and so was the play on the field. The Giants had no business losing this game. And it's crazy because people are crucifying their head coach, Brian Daboll, after this game for his coddling of quarterback Tommy DeVito. At one point, DeVito did not attempt a single forward pass. He had one attempt, I believe, midway through the third quarter. He came in for Tyrod Taylor, who injured his ribs. And what did I always tell you guys about Tyrod Taylor? It's not a matter of if he's going to get hurt. It's when and for how long. He's never been at a stop and been completely healthy. That's not the Tyrod Taylor way. And so it was only a matter of time. And this was the game against that Jets defense that he got banged up in, and they had to bring in Tommy DeVito. And he threw one pass going into overtime. One. They were running on 3rd and 9 and 3rd and 6 and 3rd and 11. They didn't give a shit. And as crazy as this sounds, Saquon Barkley was killing the Jets. They knew he was getting the ball. He had like 38 carries for like 100 and, let me look it up. I'm not going to guess and speculate. I'm right here. Let me just tell you what he had. He had 36 carries for 128 yards. Now, I know this doesn't sound all that great, but when the other team knows you're like, there's no threat of the pass, they know you're running, and you still are able to get 6 and 7 yards. And on 3rd and 6, he gets 7. On 3rd and 11, he gets 8 and gets it into a more manageable field goal situation. That's amazing. That's amazing. They invented ways to run in this game. Quarterback was involved. Matt Breida got some carries. Wan'Dale Robinson had a couple of jet sweeps. They were finding and inventing ways to run the ball so that Tommy DeVito didn't have to throw the football. Listen to Tommy DeVito's stat line in this game. 2 of 7 for -1 yards. Let me repeat that one more time. 2 of 7 for -1 yards on the day. And at one point in the fourth quarter, the crowd was chanting, "Let him throw, let him throw," because they weren't throwing the football. But I said all of that to say this. It should have never come down to Tommy DeVito having to throw the football, because Graham Gano missed a field goal in the first half. And then the Giants up 10-7 late in the game, 30 seconds left. They got into chip shot field goal range after Kayvon Thibodeau, who was a man amongst boys in this game, forced a fumble of Zach Wilson, gave the Giants great field position and a chance to put this game away. And it was 4th and 1, and they could have just given it to Saquon one more time. And if he gets the first down, game's over. But they decided to kick the field goal, and I don't blame them, because it's a 35-yard freaking field goal that Graham Gano shouldn't be able to make. And he misses. His second, and the first one he missed in the game was like from 33 yards. So he missed 2 chip shot field goals. It should have been 13-7. The Jets hadn't done anything in the way of forward passing in the game up until that point. And then, of course, as fate would have it, with the game on the line and 30 seconds left after a missed field goal, drained all of the wind out of their sails. They give up 2 chunk passes to allow the Jets to get in the field goal range to kick the game time field goal. Goes to overtime. The Jets win the Giants win the toss, which I would have deferred personally. See if I can get Zach Wilson to turn the bitch over and give us a chance to win, because I know my offense ain't scoring with Tommy DeVito at quarterback. But they took the ball like some dum-dums, and Tommy DeVito throws it 3 times in overtime, or maybe twice. And both of them were behind the line of scrimmage to Saquon Barkley, who gained no yards. I think he lost like 3 or 4 yards. I mean, it was a joke. They punt the ball. The Jets get great field position. And what did you think they were going to do? They got in the field goal range and kicked the game-winning field goal, and they win the game 13-10. The Giants are just awful. The Jets had no business winning that game. for as bad as the Giants played and didn't want to throw the ball, they didn't have to if Graham Gano just makes one of his 2 misses in this game. Jets survived 13-10, and somehow, some way, I don't know. Like, the Jets have 4 improbable wins. None of their wins have been like clean, start to finish, really good performance. Like maybe the Broncos game. Outside of that, though, how the hell have they won 4 games? Is beyond me. 13-10 is the final. Jets are 4-3. Giants are 2-6. Jaguars and Steelers, you talk about a slop fest. This was a sloppy game, but I love the fact that the Jaguars are able to go into Pittsburgh and win a nasty affair like this. The old Jaguars wouldn't have been able to find a way to win this game. This was a nasty, wet weather, windy game. And this is Pittsburgh Steelers weather. This is the kind of game that they thrive and flourish in. And they were the physical team. They were the aggressors. They knocked Kenny Pickett out of the game. They got after Mitchell Trubisky. They were the ones running the football and being the aggressors in this game. And that's impressive because a lot of people look at Jacksonville as this finesse football team. And Trevor Lawrence, 24-32, 292, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. He played phenomenally coming off of the Thursday night game in which we weren't sure he was going to be able to go against New Orleans and find a way to help them win that game. I keep hearing people say Trevor Lawrence is a fraud. I don't see it. Sorry, not sorry. Travis Etienne, 24 carries, 79 yards. It doesn't sound like much, but in a game like this where the weather is nasty and it's windy, you got to turn around and hand the ball off. And Travis Etienne was not scared. He was not scared at all. Evan Ingram was huge in this game, 10 catches, 88 yards. But on the Steelers side of things, Kenny Pickett was 10 of 16 for 73 yards before he was knocked out of the game. Mitchell Trubisky came in, was 15 of 27, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. And that was really the difference in the game was the turnovers. Too many Steeler turnovers in this game. They turned it over, and they were unable to generate offense. And they created some turnovers on their own, and they weren't able to generate any scores because the Jaguars fumbled twice, and Lawrence threw a pick. But they weren't able to generate anything off of those turnovers. And so Matt Canada continues to be a source of frustration for Steelers fans. They just can't seem to find a handle or a rhythm on the offensive side of the football. That continued in this game. The weather didn't help, but that's Steelers weather. That's a game that they would normally find a way to win. They did not. Jags get it done 20-10. They're now 6-2. This has got to be their best start in over 20 years. You probably got to go back to the Mark Brunell's days to get to a start like this. Maybe David Garrard in the early 2000s, maybe. But I'm thinking you got to probably go back to the 90s with Brunell at the helm for a start like this for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Steelers are now 4-3 with the loss. Falcons and Titans. This was a fun game. A lot more entertaining than I thought it was going to be. So every week I've got 4 games on my big screen. I've got the Washington game on my computer, and then I've got whatever's on CBS on or the opposite channel on my other computer. So I'm watching 6 games at the same time. And for some people, if you're watching that much football, then you can't possibly know what's going on in any of the games. And while that can be true at times, I've trained myself to be able to kind of watch everything that's going on. And so I've gotten better at it. I'm telling you, at first it was overwhelming. It was overwhelming, but I'm a junkie. I can't turn down 6 games at once. Are you kidding me? And so what happened was, I don't know if you guys experienced this, but YouTube TV was struggling on Sunday. You remember how last year DirecTV Sunday Ticket on DirecTV would have issues with buffering, and you're like, what the F is going on? Is it just me? Is this my shit, or is everybody having this issue? It was struggling. And that shit was buffering, and it would stop. And so I turned off the TV, turned it back on to see maybe it's me, right? And then I later found out everybody was struggling with that shit. So I didn't feel bad. But I didn't have the Falcons and Titans initially in my 4 block of games. I couldn't find the 4 block that I initially had with the games that I wanted to watch. And so I had to settle for the Titans and Falcons. And boy, I'm glad that I did. Because Will Levis went off. First of all, those Oilers throwbacks. Are you kidding me? Or what, man? Are you kidding me? Or what, man? Those things are so gorgeous. And I remember when I used to play Madden and I would play with the Titans, I would always put those on. I would always put those rookie season Eddie George, but really that's the Earl Campbell Love Your Blues on. Like, man, those things are incredible. And watching them come back to life, Nike put their little on it. Oh, my God. You can't lose when you got that shit on. Like when you got on some crispy throwbacks, that's something else that I got to start taking into consideration. Like when you wear crispy throwbacks, you can't lose. You can't. You can't. Like Tampa Bay should be ashamed of themselves putting on the creamsicles and then getting run by the Lions, right? But every team that wore some crispy throwbacks this week, Seattle should have lost, but they had the throwbacks on. They couldn't lose in those. Are you kidding me? You can't lose in the Steve Largents. You can't do that. You can't lose in the Kingdom Killers. You can't do it. And the Titans can't lose in the Love Your Blues. Sorry, not sorry, right? Oh, man, those were beautiful. And Will Levis was throwing dimes. And I'm not a Will Levis fan. You guys know that. And one game doesn't make you a star in this league, but damn it, if that wasn't a hell of a first impression. I mean, he wasn't nickel and diamond here, folks. These were bombs he was throwing. And his last touchdown pass was his best touchdown pass. I forget who he threw it to, but he's rolling to his right. He stops, he plants, and he flicks it. And, you know, he's got a huge arm. I mean, he's got this ridiculous cannon. And he just flicks his wrist, and he's dropping dimes 45 yards down the field on the button. And this one was just a thing of beauty with the Falcons bearing down their necks. He puts a dagger in their heart. And you're like, God damn, Will Levis is in his bag. And he throws 4 touchdown passes in this game. And they're all deep shots. None of these are dink and dunkers. 3 of them to DeAndre Hopkins, who didn't have a touchdown catch all season long until this game. And which is why I'm like, Mike, what are we doing, man? Are we posturing for the veterans on the team? Like, what are we doing? This obsession with Ryan Tannehill is cute, but it's old and it's stale, and it's got to stop. Will Levis should be the man moving forward. Let's just see what he's got. And we know every game's not going to look like that. But anyway, he played his ass off. But it's the more fascinating storyline was on the other sideline with the Falcons, because they were thinking about benching Desmond Ridder 3 weeks ago. And then he had that tremendous game against the Texans. And that bought him some more time because they're like, hey, this is the Desmond Ridder that we know can play. And this is the guy that we want to see. And then the following week after that, he promptly throws 3 interceptions and pretty much cost them the game against the Commanders. And so they were kind of torn about what he could be. And they, went on the road and beat Tampa. So again, they bought him another week. It wasn't pretty, but he got it done in the crucial moments of that game. Big completion late to Kyle Pitts to help set up the game with a field goal. So I don't know if he went into this game with a short leash or not, but they benched his ass at halftime. All right. And I didn't feel like it was like, he wasn't egregious. It was just like, he was being Desmond Ridder. And I'm like, he's being who he is. Why are you getting mad at him? I already told you. He's Ryan Tannehill. He's Alex Smith. He's a game manager. So why are you getting mad at Desmond Ridder for being Desmond Ridder? Desmond Ridder, when he got benched, listen to this. 8 of 12 for 71 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Now, he was sacked 5 times. And they probably thought those 5 sacks weren't on the offensive line, just him not reading the field well, not getting rid of the football. But he was 8 of 12 for 71 yards. Now, the score at the time when he was benched at halftime was 14-3, and they weren't doing anything on offense, and they benched his ass. They needed a spark. You know, if you're looking for a spark, my guy, TH4, Taylor Heinicke, is the man for the job. And he promptly came in and he gave him a spark off the bench. 12 of 21, 175 yards, a touchdown. And he had these boys moving and got to the end of the game. And you look up, and it wasn't always pretty with Heinicke, as it usually isn't, right? It's usually not pretty, but he's gritty, and he usually finds a way to get you a dub. And I thought he was going to do it. And Will Levis is doing everything in his power to make sure that this is a win for the Titans. And on the opposite sideline, Taylor Heinicke is doing everything in his power to make sure that Will Levis doesn't get his first career victory as a starter against these Falcons. And Heinicke is trimming away at this lead. He's chopping away at this thing, and they get the ball back. Down 5, 28-23, with roughly a minute and 40 left. The Falcons don't have like any timeouts, but Heinicke doesn't need any timeouts. Like, he's that guy, right? And I told you this about Taylor Heinicke. I don't trust him for the first 3 quarters of the game. It's a crapshoot what you're going to get. You don't know what Taylor Heinicke's going to show up. But you give him the ball, down a score, late in the football game, Heinicke can get it done. And I trust him in that situation. And I really, truly believe he was about to take them down the field to win the game. And they got to go for it on 4th down. They don't have any more timeouts. And it's 4th down and 4. And they're deep in Tennessee territory. So if they don't get this, the game's over. Tennessee can take 3 knees and run the clock out. And Van Jefferson, who was newly acquired 2 weeks ago, this is his 3rd game as a Falcon. His first game was against the Commanders 3 weeks ago. They got him from the Rams. He's wide ass open on a 5-yard hitch on 4th and 4. And Heinicke hits him and he drops it right through his hands. And I swear, if they get that first down, Heinicke's going to take them down the field. They're going to win that game. Damn it, man. Falcons lose 28-23. Titans, again, another one of these teams where I look up and I don't know how in the hell you're 3-4, but you're 3-4. And the Falcons are 4-4, and they easily could be 5-3 or 6-2 right now. But such is life. They don't get it done. And, you know, there was this debate on whether Heinicke or Ritter would be the quarterback moving forward. Was this just, I need a spark, but Ritter's still the guy? Which I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan of, I just need a spark in game. A lot of old school players would love, hey, I would have benched him and put in this guy. I just needed a spark. F that. We out of that shit. This ain't the 80s. We're not benching guys for a spark anymore. I'm not looking for Rob Johnson to come off the bench and throw 3 touchdown passes to give me a lift, and then he goes back to the bench next week. If you bench a dude like Cardi B, that shit is forever. And Taylor Heinicke is your starter now, right? And I'm excited. That's my guy, Taylor Heinicke, right? We all rooting for him over here. So I'm anxious to see what he does for these Falcons moving forward. And I'm anxious to see Will Levis. This Thursday night game has more intrigue for me now that Will Levis is starting at quarterback. So I'm looking forward to that Thursday night game. Will Levis versus Kenny Pickett. Anyway, I digress. Panthers and Texans, I won't keep you here along with this one. This was an ugly one. And this is what I expected to happen. The Panthers, if they're going to win a game, I don't think they're going to win another game this season. They're not good. And watching this game was tough because they don't do the little things right on offense. They don't have a lot of talent on offense. And they put so much pressure on Bryce Young because they don't really run the football all that effectively, even though Chuba Hubbard was actually pretty good in this game. But they don't really run the football all that effectively. And, 15 carries, 28 yards. I said he was effective, and those are his numbers, right? Miles Sanders, is something wrong with him? He had 2 carries in this game. Like, they're not even using him. They were going exclusively to Blackshear and Hubbard in this game. So I don't really know what's going on with Miles Sanders. I don't know if the fumbling has been an issue for him this year and they just were sick of it, or he's in their doghouse or what, but he's not getting on the field. Either way, they just don't have enough around Bryce Young. And he's trying, but It's just not a pretty product right now. But boy, do I love Brian Burns. Frankie Louvu is another guy I like watching play. They got some guys on that side of the ball, but they're not going to win very many games. I'm going to go out on a limb and say this going to be their only win. And they could sneak somebody in their division, catch Atlanta napping, or the Saints on a bad day, even though the Saints already play. It's going to be at home. Whoever they beat, it's going to be at home. It's probably going to be in the division. But this was the one to get. Coming off the bye, the Texans are vulnerable. They were all on a bye week as well, and they got it done. I'm just going to leave it at that. Both teams had opportunities to win this game. Both teams looked like young teams with, first-year quarterbacks playing. And your end result is the Panthers getting it done on a walk-off field goal from their kicker, Eddie Pinheiro, who had missed earlier in the game, 15-13. He missed an extra point. Anyway, I digress. Good for the Panthers. You could see the elation and the jubilation on their faces. It's tough when you're losing every game. And that was Bryce's first one, and you could tell he was excited about that. He gets his ass kicked every week. Man, is he getting his ass whooped every week. He's not a big guy. It's hard to watch sometimes. He's getting plastered, but he's hanging in there. Rams Cowboys, this one was over before it even started, it felt like. I mean, this thing got ugly quick. It was 17-3 after one. It was 33-9 at halftime. Matthew Stafford looks like he's done. He looks washed, folks. They beat him up good, hurt his finger, knocked him out of the game, picked him off for a pick six. I don't know what the hell he was doing on that particular throw, what he was seeing, but he threw it right to Deron Bland, who took his third interception to the crib this season. That defense has been ferocious. They've created turnovers, and they've turned those turnovers into points. The special teams has probably been the best in the league this year. They finally got off with Kevontae Turpin. He had like 3 or 4 big returns in this game. 1 or 2 of them were called back due to penalty, and then there were another 2 that stood and set up Cowboys points. They blocked a punt that ended up being a safety. I mean, the Cowboys are getting it done in all 3 phases. And this was Dak Prescott's best performance of the season. Brandon Cooks was in full effect. Prescott, 25 of 31, 304, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. This was by far and away his best performance of the season. So if they can get this going offensively to match what the special teams and the defense is doing, look out for Dallas. This is when they're at their best. They did it to the Patriots. They did it to the Giants. They did it again here to the Rams, and they're capable. They're fully capable. We've seen it. This is the second time they've scored 40. Third time they've scored. I think they scored 37 against the Patriots. So when they get all 3 phases involved, this is what happens. And for the Rams, they're 3-5. They're just not a good team, and I don't know the status of Matthew Stafford, but honestly, I just don't have a lot of faith in them moving forward. I don't. So they're 3-5. Dallas is 5-2, and they've got a massive showdown on the road at Philadelphia in week number 9. Vikings, Packers. Again, nothing really here to see. 24-10 victory for the Vikings. Vikings get back to 500 after starting the season off 0-3. They're now 4-4. Packers, after starting the season off 2-1, are now 2-5. They've lost 4 in a row, and they can't get right. And I don't really know how people are feeling about Jordan Love. It's hard to evaluate him right now, I feel like, because they've had injuries to the offensive line. I don't like the talent that's surrounding him. They're so young, and I think that's the biggest problem. There's no veteran leadership anywhere outside of Aaron Jones. It's the blind leading the blind. So you got young boys out here running around, don't know if they're running the right route or not making plays, catching the football. I don't know if Jordan Love is seeing it well. It's just a lot to digest with them. A lot of turnovers at inopportune times. And this defense, they talk a lot, but they don't actually produce in Green Bay. And so Kirk Cousins, we know that the biggest story coming from this game is his Achilles injury. And it's crazy because he just doesn't get hurt. And he's been so durable throughout his career. I would equate him to pretty much Eli Manning. Remember, Eli Manning had that Iron Man streak that coincidentally was snapped by being benched by Porn Stash for Geno Smith of all people, but Ben McAdoo. But he's gonna miss the rest of the season, obviously, and it prompted them to make the trade we talked about with Josh Dobbs. But I don't see the Vikings going anywhere with Josh Dobbs. But it sucks because they were starting to play good football. The defense was coming along. They were playing much more confident ball under Brian Flores, and Kirk was getting into his bag. And remember, they're doing all of this without Justin Jefferson. So imagine what the offense is going to look like when he actually came back. Unfortunately, they'll never get to see what that looks like. As they get the win, 24-10. Packers are 2-5. Vikings are 4-4. And I think the Packers got some questions. I don't think it's time to give up on Jordan Love, but it's getting late early. I'll say that. Saints Colts, really entertaining game. Seems like anything that the Colts touch turns into an entertaining game. Last week they had the most entertaining game of the week, 39-38 loss to the Browns. This week 38-27 loss. One thing I can say is that the Colts scored points. I think in their 8 games they've scored. They're the only team in the NFL this season to score 20 or more points in all 8 of their contests this season. They've been so prolific offensively under new head coach Shane Steichen. I do think the Eagles miss Shane Steichen, and he's coming over here, and he's got their offense buzzing. The problem is they can't stop a nosebleed, okay? They can't punch through a wet paper towel right now. I mean, it's just bad defensively. And I got to say this. The Saints, this receiver, Rashid Shaheed, man, is this guy good. He's dynamic. Like, I don't know how the league missed on this kid, but he's talented, man. 3 catches, 153 yards, including a 58-yarder for a touchdown. Every week he's making some electrifying play, whether it's on punts or kickoffs or receiving. This dude is a threat. He might be one of the fastest receivers in the NFL. I mean, he's so dynamic. And Derek Carr is starting to take a real liking to him. For some reason, Chris Olave and Derek Carr just can't get on the same page, but Rashid Shaheed and Derek Carr are locked in. And if those two continue to make beautiful music, they're going to be a tough team to deal with because Shaheed is a difference maker. You start mixing in Taysom Hill, who I think they finally figured out, you know what? We should get Taysom Hill the ball. Like, duh. You're better when Taysom Hill touches it. 9 carries, 63 yards for Taysom Hill in this game. Duh. Like, what are you doing? Taysom Hill should be touching it a lot more. And Taysom Hill can catch too. When you line him up at tight end, there's so much you can do with him. I think they got back to the run game. I just told you Taysom Hill ran it. Kamara 17 for 59. Jamal Williams 6 for 30. Kendre Miller, the rookie out of TCU, 3 for 10. So that averages out from 36 carries, 161 yards, 4.5 per pop, 3 touchdowns. That's what they have to get back to, running the football. You can't put it on the shoulders of Derek Carr, right? This is what you need to do, and let Derek Carr go play action fake and take shots. That's what he does best. Indianapolis Colts side of things, Gardner Minshew, as I mentioned before, he's going to turn it over. He actually wasn't too bad in this game. Did have the 1 interception, but 23 of 43 is not ideal from a completion percentage standpoint. But Jonathan Taylor is back, 12 carries, 92 yards, including a 42-yarder. Zach Moss, who was the guy that was kind of keeping him at bay, 11 carries, 66 yards, including a 41-yarder of his own. So they were able to run the shit out of the football. Just it didn't manifest itself into a ton of points like the run game did for the Saints. And it sucks because they're scoring points, but this defense is giving it up. And the offense, they're turning it over and they're creating shorter fields for the defense to have to defend. And it's just been tough on the Colts, but they're a scary 3-5 team. I'll just say that the Indianapolis Colts are. And the Saints, I still believe this, even though they've pissed me off to no end this season, I still believe they're the best team in a very weak NFC South division. And everybody's 4-4 right now, except for the Panthers and the Bucks. Panthers are 1-6 now. The Bucks are 3-4, and the Falcons and the Saints are both 4-4. I still think the Saints are the best team in that division, but we will see. Now we get to the 4 o'clock games. Browns and Seahawks. This was a fun one. And as I mentioned earlier with the Titans, you can't lose when you're wearing the throwback Crispies. You can't. They put on the Kingdom Killers, and you can't beat them when they put those on. I'm sorry, they look too clean. And the Browns had them. They had them. And for all the shit that we talk about PJ Walker had him in a position to win the game, and he actually played. This was his best performance. They've won games with him at quarterback, but they've won in spite of him. This one would have been, they won because PJ Walker was locked in. And just when you wanted to give PJ Walker some credit, he throws a back-breaking pick. They're up in this game 20-17. All right. And it's a 3rd down, and he's trying to throw a slant to Amari Cooper, and he airmails the bitch right to the safety. It gets batted, excuse me. It gets batted in the air by Jamal Adams on a blitz. And Julian Love, the other safety, picks it off. And it's the worst time for this to happen because even if they don't convert this, 3rd down, just punt the goddamn ball. You punt it. You make them drive the length of the field. If they can get in the field goal range and they tie it, it goes to overtime. Let's see what happens. If not, your defense has been playing rock solid ball all day long. You might steal this thing 20-17. Instead, that interception is right at midfield, sort of ish, maybe even in plus territory. If it's not, it's right outside. It's on the outskirts of plus territory. And Geno Smith, locked in, got it done, moved it down the field. They throw a little hitch to Jackson Smith and Jigba, get a blocker out in front, and he takes it up the sidelines into the end zone for the game-winning score. That's a back-breaking loss if you're the Browns because that one was there for the taking, but you can't beat them in those jerseys. I'm sorry. It just can't happen. But the Seahawks were up 17-7, and I was watching the beginning of this game thinking, damn, Geno is in the zone. There's a touchdown pass back corner of the end zone that Geno Smith throws on the move, and you just go, Geno, what the F, bro? What the F, bro? Geno's like, they wrote me off, and I ain't right back. But then the Browns defense sunk their teeth into the Seahawks' ass. And had they had that dog that had that bird in his mouth walking around the stadium like, and what? But you can't win when your quarterback is PJ Walker and they got on the crispy throwbacks, the Kingdom Killers. You can't. You just can't. That's a big win for Seattle, man, because they didn't know that across town, couple states over, the 49ers were getting work served up by the Cincinnati Bengals. They didn't know they were about to take first place in the NFC West division. So that's a big win for them there. Jake Bobo continues to be good, and it was good to see DK Metcalf back on the field for the Seattle Seahawks. They got a lot of talent on that Seahawks offense, man. They really do. 24-20. Browns are now 4-3 with the loss. Seahawks are now 5-2, and by via virtue of the bye week that they have, they are up on the 49ers by a half game at 5-2. Niners are 5-3. Speaking of Niners, they lose 31-17 to the Cincinnati Bengals, and this is what I needed to see. Like I still was one of those people that were kind of holding out, like, hey man, is Joey B really back? Because that shit I saw before the bye, I wasn't buying it. That win against Seattle, that didn't move me. If anything, it moved the needle back for me, and I was like, hey, let me take a step back, because that Arizona game, he looked like he was back. Then you play against Seattle, and you stink it up, and the defense has to save your ass, and I'm like, I don't know, man. That's why I picked San Francisco. This was the game I needed to see. Joe Burrow was doing them boys. He's back. He's healthy. He was running around, scrambling, doing that Joe Burrow shit, tossing it around the field, making 3 dudes miss, running and getting a 9-yard gain on 3rd and 7, getting up and giving you the first down. And he had the swag back. They back. They're a problem. And we know they play defense. That's what's been carrying them this season with no offense. Now Chase is back. They're starting to get T. Higgins involved. He had a beautiful throw to Tyler Boyd for a touchdown in this game. Joey B's back. These boys are back. So this was impressive. And if you're San Francisco, I'm going to continue to ride with the excuse of no Deebo Samuel, no Trent Williams, no physicality. That's who they are. Those two set a tone for you. But you can't have the turnovers. And Brock Purdy, this is the second week in a row that he's had the ball in his hands with a chance, and he's made a really bad decision, or he's found a way to, like the interception he throws. First of all, it's a great play by the linebacker. I can't remember who it was. Let me go look and see. I want to credit it to Joseph Osai, but I don't want to give him credit and charge something to his account that he didn't do. Let me see. Jermaine Pratt. This is one of the best interceptions you'll see. He tips the ball to himself, and as Brock Purdy is rolling out to his right, they're inside the 20. They're in the red zone, right? You got points already if you don't do anything. And he tips it to himself in one motion and picks it off. It's just like, damn, that hurts. He threw another interception that Brock Purdy to Logan Wilson, who I think he's one of the most underrated linebackers in the entire league. I've always called him a poor man's Leighton Vander Esch. He's better than Leighton Vander Esch. To hell with Leighton Vander Esch. He's better than him. He's the equivalent of a healthy Sean Lee, if you can remember what Sean Lee was healthy. Like, this dude is always around the ball. I think this is like his third or fourth pick of the season. Like, that's just what he does. Every year you look up, he's got 3 or 4 picks. It's crazy. Anyway, Brock Purdy made too many mistakes, like he did against the Vikings late in the ball game. And Burrow, it's going to be hard to beat them if he's doing this. 28 of 32. That's what's the percentage on that? I gotta look that up. That's gotta be 87% or some shit. I gotta look that up, man. That's crack numbers. 28 of 32. 87.5. I'm a beast. 87.5%. Them crack numbers for 283 and 3 scores and no interceptions. He's back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back, Joey B. We missed you, bro. And all of a sudden, the Cincinnati Bengals are once again one of the best teams in the AFC. Don't mind the 4-3 record. They back. As far as the 49ers are concerned, I'm concerned. That's 3 in a row. And this is a opponent that you can afford to lose to. It's an AFC game. They're actually really good. The Vikings one is the one you can't lose. Can't afford to lose that one with no Justin Jefferson on the field. The Browns one you shouldn't have lost. Jake Moody needs to make the kick. But here we are. No longer the best team in the NFC, not even the best team in your own division. And I think they are still confident. Like, Brock's going to be fine. We're going to get Deebo Samuel and Trent Williams back after this bye week. We went out and got Chase Young. We're not panicking. And head coach Kyle Shanahan said everything we need is the answers that you're looking for as to what we need to turn things around. It's in the locker room. We good. Yeah, maybe. You're probably right. I don't disagree. But I can tell you this much. Brock Purdy's going to need to play better. And I still believe in him. And I think a lot of people forgot adversity is going to hit at some point. He had been so good to start his career off, and there was no adversity that I want to see how he handles adversity. It's 3 straight losses. The last 2, he didn't play well at the very end of those ball games. And now I want to see how he handles it. 5-3 for the 49ers. Now they're in second place, a half game behind Seattle. Meanwhile, the Cincinnati Bengals are 4-3, and they're back. They're going to be a problem moving forward. And they got a big one. I think it's them and Buffalo on Monday Night Football. Damn, that's going to be a game. I think that's the Monday night game. I'm going to look it up real quick. Yep. Sunday night. Excuse me. That's Sunday night. Woo. That's going to be yummy. Ravens, Cardinals. This was an interesting game because similar to some of the other losses, the Cardinals had opportunities in this game. And they were down 21-7 at one point, but they hung in, and Dobbs didn't play poorly until he started turning the ball over. And they made him pay every time he made a mistake with the throw. And like I said with Gardner Minshew, with Josh Dobbs, early in the season, Dobbs wasn't turning it over. And they were in every ball game in the fourth quarter, and they just didn't have enough. But he was playing well. And then he had that one game against Cincinnati where all hell broke loose, and I said, the wheels are going to come off for Dobbs now. He's going to start turning it over every week because that's who he is. Same thing with Gardner Minshew. Once you pop the top, the fun don't stop with the turnovers, with quarterbacks who aren't that good. And Dobbs is better than I think people give him credit for, but he's still going to turn it over. And, boy, he had some back-breaking turnovers in this game, just like he did against Cincinnati. Dobbs, 2 interceptions in this game. He also had a fumble, but they did not lose that fumble. They should have. Jadeveon Clowney, I don't know how he didn't pick that thing up, but that's nor here nor there. The 2 turnovers are just soul-crushing because the Ravens turned those two turnovers into touchdowns. Lamar Jackson was solid. He wasn't earth-shattering. This was really about Gus Edwards and his physicality down by the goal line. He had 3 touchdowns in this game. They said, we're just going to outlast the Cardinals. There's really nothing to see here. They forced turnovers. They turned those turnovers into points, and they converted in the red zone. Let's see what they were in the red zone. I think that's where this game was won for them. The Ravens were 4 of 4 in the red zone. The Cardinals were 3 of 3, right? High level efficiency in the red zone in this game. 7 of 7 total for both teams, but the Ravens won this game because they didn't miss in the red zone. Gus Edwards, they just turned around and handed it to Gus the Bus, and he did the rest. They win this game 31-24, moved to 6-2, continue to keep that distance between them and everybody else in the division. Meanwhile, Arizona drops to 1-7. They trade Joshua Dobbs after this game to the Minnesota Vikings, and Kyler Murray should be ready this week. If not, they will go to rookie Clayton Tune. And then finally, last game up on the slate, week number 8, the Kansas City Chiefs at the Denver Broncos. AFC West family business. If these two teams said they ain't did it, then they ain't did it. But if they did, well, that's family business. And the Broncos had these boys on the ropes on Thursday Night Football just 2 weeks ago. This is the second time the Chiefs have played the Broncos in a 3-week span. So they know these Chiefs. They play them tough. And, you know, if somebody's going to get you, it's usually going to be a family member. They lied to us, though. I was disappointed because, you know, I didn't watch this game live when it happened. But we were told that we were supposed to get our first snow game of the season. And we were going to get 4 to 6 inches. So I'm thinking, man, that's what got Kansas City. It got nasty. It was white all over the place. And they handled it better than the Chiefs did. And they were able to come out on top. That was my assumption when I saw the final score, not having seen the game and watched anything yet. And then I go to the game and I turn the shit on. Well, where the goddamn snow at? Y'all lied to me. How could you be that wrong? You told me. It ain't like you said, hey, it's a chance of snow. You know, they ain't tell me. And the weatherman said that it's a light chance of snow. They didn't tell me that. They told me 4 to 6, and that means it's definitely snowing. When you tell me 4 to 6 inches, it's definitely snowing. The question is, are we going to get the 4 inches? We got nothing. I was disappointed. Not only in the lack of snow, but in the play of the Kansas City Chiefs in this game. But you got to credit the Denver Broncos, too. They made plays. They know the Chiefs. They got after Mahomes. They sacked him. They forced him to fumble. They picked him off twice. Justin Simmons, who's always been a thorn in Patrick Mahomes' side, picked him off late in the game to ice it. But the Chiefs also had some self-destructive behavior in this game. As I mentioned, Mahomes had a sack, strip, fumble. He threw a dime, an absolute dime on a 4th down and 3 to Sky Moore back of the end zone, and he just dropped it. And Mahomes is like, this is why if I were them, there's no way I'm cool with just getting Mecole Hardman at the trade deadline. And Rashid Rice looks like he's going to step up. I've already told you, I think he's going to be their Juju Smith-Schuster. But they still need a guy. And if they were serious about repeating this year, I think somebody's going to get them in the playoffs this year. I just don't think they have enough firepower. You know, Kelsey is excellent. We know what he is, but you still need that one dude. And I don't know if Rashid Rice is ready to be that. I think eventually he'll be that guy. I just don't know if it's going to happen this year. You know? I thought they should have been working the phones and seeing if they couldn't, you know, get one of these receivers, man. They need something. But it's one game, you know, and again, it's a family member. And you know, I was happy for Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton. These are two names that were on the trade block. I think a lot of us expected Jerry Jeudy to get moved. The Broncos said we're not moving anybody. We're good. And both of those boys showed up and showed out in this game. Jeudy with a big, you know, climb the ladder catch, and then a dime from Russell Wilson in the corner of the end zone. And you know, and then Cortland Sutton had one back of the end zone, gets his feet down, you know, that sort of thing. So, you know, I'm proud of those boys. It's been tough, you know, and it's been tough on Russ too. And they may be turning things around in Denver. We'll see. It's 2 in a row, right? They were 1-6 after a bad loss a few weeks ago. And that's 2 in a row. And that defense is coming to life. You know, they're coming alive now. And look out for the Denver Broncos, man. I don't think they're going to make anything of the season necessarily, but I think they're going to be a much tougher out as the season progresses than they were earlier in the season, right? I think they're gaining confidence slowly but surely. You know, Russell Wilson, they're not going to jump out at you. 12 of 19 for 114 and 3 touchdowns, but he didn't throw any interceptions. He took 6 sacks. And when I say took 6 sacks, he held on to the ball and literally took sacks. Like, it's funny because Washington fans think that Sam Howell's the only quarterback in the league that I'd much rather my quarterback take a sack than throw a pick. Russell Wilson took 6 sacks in this game. They ran the ball. Javonte Williams, 27 carries for 85 yards. That's not an average that you brag about, but you know what that is? That's a commitment to the run game. A lot of people forget that Sean Payton ran the shit out of the football, even when he had Drew Brees. He ran the shit out of the ball. People forget that. He wants to run the football. He comes from the Bill Parcells tree. That's in his DNA. A lot of people forget that. They ran it 40 times in this game. Russell Wilson only threw it 19. They won the football game 24-9. Sloppy performance from the Chiefs. They turned it over 3 times and they turned it over 5 times in this game. 5. 3 fumbles, 2 interceptions by Patrick Mahomes. Who you beating doing that? Who you beating doing that? I mean, I told you it was some nasty work in this game. The things that they did were just ridiculous. One of them, I didn't think the Valdez Scantling one, I didn't think was a fumble. He barely got to his feet. Like, I thought that was bang, bang. That's incomplete, but whatever. I digress. Chiefs are 6-2 now. The rest of the conference is kind of closing that gap. And the game against the Dolphins on Sunday over in Germany for first place in the conference. Winner of that game is going to move to 7-2 and be all in first place by their lonesome. The loser will be 6-3 and right there in that neighborhood with Baltimore. I think Baltimore is tied with them at 6-2, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So, did Baltimore have a bye week? Let me check real quick. I don't think they have. They had the option of taking one after London. Yep, and they didn't take it. So they're 6-2 as well. So 3 teams in the AFC are sitting atop the conference at 6-2. The Baltimore Ravens, the Miami Dolphins, and the Kansas City Chiefs. two of them play each other in week number 9. That should be a ton of fun. So that'll force me to get up at 9:30 on Sunday morning. That'll make me get up. Not all of these international games make me get up first thing in the morning. This one, I'll be front and center for that one. So that's Slate Skatin. Y'all know what it is. Damn, that was some fun, man. Let's go ahead and finish this thing on out with garbage time. And I got a bunch of comments, so I want to get to those first. And then we'll get to my prediction for Thursday Night Football as we preview week number 9 with Thursday night. Let's get to the comment section, though. Let Sam Cook. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Let Sam Cook writes, Ron's still out here in press conferences stuttering and talking like he's going to be involved in the draft coming up. Also, word is JDR walks if Ron is fired. He can walk, he can run, he can crawl. I could care less how he gets out of here. He's just got to get his shit and he's got to go. The assumption is if Ron is fired, so is everybody else in the building that he brought there, with the exception of Eric Bieniemy, who I think still has a chance to prove to the staff that he's the guy. He's got 9 games to do that. And I said after the Bears game, this is a 12-game audition for Eric Bieniemy. So I don't think that has changed, even though I may not believe in him as much. I've admitted, and I did last night, come to the realization that I've been hard on Eric Bieniemy. I think my expectations were through the roof. He has not met my expectations. They were extremely high, but I pride myself on setting the bar extremely high. I'm not a low-hanging fruit, set the bar at a manageable level. I don't even do that for myself. I'm hard on myself because I set the bar high intentionally, and I do everything in my power, and I kill myself to try and hit that bar. And that's why I set the bar for Eric Bieniemy, and he has not met my expectations, but that doesn't mean he hasn't done a good job. He just hasn't done the job that I thought he was going to do. But JDR isn't going to be there. If Ron's not there, JDR doesn't. That's not optional. He's not walking. He's fired too. They're all gone. Like that's my assumption. Anyway, I guess theoretically, if they gave EB the job, he'd have the choice to retain. Why would you want to do that though? If I'm Eric Bieniemy and I look up and we scored 31 points twice against the Eagles and we lost because we gave up 34 and 38 respectively, I don't want you back. In the Bears game where the offense was struggling early, you gave up 27 points, dude. I don't want you back. Frankie, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB, who writes, Ron's presser got me heated. Lack of consistency is due with the lack of consistency at the QB spot. Maybe if we got our guy, we wouldn't have gotten to where we wanted, but we never got to that point. We're going to talk about his press conference. I actually took notes. I never take notes on anybody's press conference. I commit it to memory. I take out the pieces of the presser that stand out to me, and I keep it pushing. If I forget something, I forget it. It is what it is. I literally pulled out my sticky tab and my pencil, and I took studious notes. So we're going to talk about that later on tonight. Frankie, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, who writes, and the reporter question was about the failure of the 4 first-round picks to be consistent. Dude threw Sam under the bus when it all starts with his staff. So he didn't throw. I think you misunderstood what he was saying. So let me clarify that for you right now. He was talking about the lack of consistency at the quarterback position in the previous 3 years. That's why they never got to see the full potential of the 4 first rounders on the D line, because we never had a quarterback. He was talking about having 3 different starters or more each of the first 3 years he was in Washington. Remember, in 2020, it was Dwayne Haskins, then it was Kyle Allen, then it was Alex Smith, and then it was Taylor Heineke. In 2021, it was Ryan Fitzpatrick, then it was Taylor Heineke, and then we had Garrett Gilbert for 1 game. So you had 3 starters in that season. Then in 2022, obviously you start with Carson Wentz, and then you get to Taylor Heineke again, and then you finish up with Sam Howell. So each of his first 3 seasons, you had 3 starters or more. That was the lack of consistency he was referring to. Not having that guy at quarterback be able to lead your offense. And he essentially said in the press conference today, if we would have had Sam playing like this in any of the previous 3 years, we probably aren't at this point that we're at. But we never found that guy until now. And, he was kind of saying, it's kind of bittersweet for him because it's probably too late. He's not going to say that, but in his mind, he's probably saying, wish I would have found Sam sooner, but such is life. Red Wing 01, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB who writes, TBF, I feel like Ron's comments were less about Sam, more about revolving door at the quarterback spot, but that's on him as well. Exactly. It wasn't about Sam. It was less about Sam. It was more about the constant turnover at quarterback, not having a consistent. That's why he kept going after veterans, because he was just looking for somebody to stabilize the position. I knew what he was doing. I just thought he was going about it all wrong. And to his defense, who wanted to come to Washington? It's not like they didn't try. It's not like they didn't go after Stafford. He didn't want to come here. It's not like they didn't go after Russell Wilson. He didn't want to come here. It's not like they didn't inquire about Aaron Rodgers. He definitely wasn't coming here. So they tried. Ron was going on a world tour every year trying to convince prospective teams and quarterbacks, hey, we got an up-and-coming program over here. You should want to get with us. And these quarterbacks are like, nah, we good. Thanks, but no thanks, man. So it was more about that, less about Sam. He wasn't talking about Sam. Red Wing 01, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, Levis put those Stafford, Allen, Herbert comps on full display. I don't think he's that, but I see why with that arm talent. My favorite comp was pre-injury Wentz. If he's that, the Titans got their guy. Boy, he looked good. I literally walked away from that game saying to myself, I see Justin Herbert here, right? Big, tall, strapping, hulking figure. Levis is built. He's cut. He's on some Brady Quinn shit. Almost to the point where you're like, bro, you too jacked to be a quarterback. But he's flicking the wrist. That's Herbert's got a gun, but Herbert actually looks like he's throwing his shit when he throw it. His shit looks more like Josh Allen. Allen just flicks his wrist and that shit goes 60 yards. That's what Will Levis's shit looks like. He just flicks his wrist and that shit goes 45 yards. And these shits were rainbows with plenty of air under, like the kind of deep ball you want your quarterback to throw. The shit that goes up in the air and gives your guy a chance to run under it, and then it just drops out of the sky right into his hands. It was impressive. I can't lie. I was not a Will Levis guy, but that shit was impressive. And if I'm a Titans fan, I'm like screaming at Mike Vrabel, you cannot go back to Ryan Tannehill under any circumstance. I don't care if this Thursday night game is an absolute disaster and we lose 26-3 and he throws 4 picks. I need to see it. Let him play. What are we doing? You're right. If he continues to play like that, they've got their guy. And if, like you said, pre-injury Wentz, we thought he was going to be the quarterback of the future for the Eagles. That we looked at Wentz as one of those guys that was going to usher in the new age of young quarterbacks. Because, it was out with Brady and Breeze and Eli Manning and Peyton Manning. All those guys were getting ready to retire, and Rodgers and Roethlisberger, they were all getting up there in age, and we were ready to push them out the door. And we were looking at that next group of quarterbacks, and Wentz was among that group until he got hurt. So if he can get to that, sky's the limit. Red Wing 01, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, he got criticized for poor processing decision-making and low stats, but I actually thought he was good at reading defenses. For me, his issue was pocket presence, which wasn't helped by bad O-line. My biggest criticism of him was exactly that. He didn't process the field and what he was seeing quick enough. So he would hold on to the ball, which would make his offensive line look bad, when I thought it was just him not getting rid of the football quick enough. And then he would make poor decisions because he's got a big arm. And you see that, like, It's no different than Jay Cutler, trying to fit it in because he's got a big arm. A lot of big arm quarterbacks do that. Josh Allen is the same way. I can get it in there because my arm suggests that I can get it in there. So I'm going to squeeze it in there and I'm going to make the throw that, 97% of the guys in the league wish they could make. But that can also get you into trouble. But all the physical gifts are there. That's why I always likened him to Herbert. Is because the gifts are there. He's toolsy as hell. He's an athlete. He's big. He's got an arm. He can make every throw. The thing that differentiates him from Herbert to me is confidence. Will Levis was always a dude that bordered on cocky. Herbert's kind of like the guy next door, kind of like shy and, doesn't really, say too much. And, he's not the guy that's rah-rah. Will Levis is definitely like in your face. I'm that dude. I'm out to kick your ass type of guy. But really impressed with him in his first start. Red Wing 01, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, if anything, I thought playing behind such a bad line in college would have a similar effect it did for Howe in that it prepared him for the NFL speed, which was a big reason Zach Wilson failed, who had all day to throw at BYU. And you're not wrong. Some of these guys who don't, and I've always said this, quarterbacks who don't see adversity in college, to me, struggle at the NFL level. Dwayne Haskins is my poster child for that. He didn't play enough football that one season. Same thing with Mitchell Trubisky. Didn't play enough football at UNC for me. And Dwayne didn't play enough football at Ohio State. Didn't see any adversity. He came in his first game. His career in college was against Michigan, and he led them to a victory. And so it was all peaches and cream for him. They win the Rose Bowl, and he's thinking, I can't do anything wrong. He goes to the league. The first bit of adversity hits, he doesn't know how to handle it. Same thing with Mitchell Trubisky, right? Everything was great at UNC for that one season. He goes pro. He goes number 2 overall. He gets to the league. His first season was tremendous. Remember, he led the Bears to a division title. They win the division. Matt Nagy gets Coach of the Year. They should have won the playoff game against the Eagles, but their kicker missed the kick, and everything's looking good for him. The next year, adversity hits. He didn't handle the shit well, right? And you see that all too often with kids who come into the league who had this sparkling college career. Like Marcus Mariota is an example of that too. That spread offense, nobody would be around Marcus Mariota, and his receivers would be wide ass open. And he gets to the NFL, and I think he's made the most out of his talents, but I don't think he was ever really what they thought he was going to be as the number 2 overall pick. That's why I thought Jameis Winston would have been better, but what we saw in his final year at Florida State, we chalked it up to, he lost, Kelvin Benjamin and some of the talent around him. The offensive line wasn't as good, and he had to try to do more. And no, that's who he is. He was a turnover guy. He was a risk taker, and he would make mistakes. And that's what he ended up being in the NFL. He could throw you into a game, but he could throw you out of a game. But he had adversity that last year, and I thought it would make him better, and it didn't. So you're right about Zach Wilson, and I think Will Levis, I'm interested. I'm intrigued. I'll say that. I am very intrigued by Will Levis. I really am. Because anytime you have a guy with that kind of a skill set, and that's what NFL teams a lot of times project, but when the tape was so bad, that's why he didn't get, trust me, all it was going to take was one team to pull the trigger on him in the first round. You don't think if teams felt good about him up here, they weren't worried about his size, his athleticism, arm talent, all of the God-given ability. They weren't worried. The thing they couldn't measure. That's the shit they were worried about. And that's why nobody took him in the first round. It wasn't because of anything else. People tried. If you liked him, you made excuses. Oh, he was hurt. He battled through injury. That's like when Cowboys fans talk to me about Dak Prescott and last year when the interceptions, and they tell me he had a hurt thumb. I said, okay, I understand that. That shit still don't explain the decisions he was making. A hurt thumb might explain why this pass is a yard and a half inside where it should be outside, ball placement, that kind of thing. That explains. It don't explain you making poor decisions with the football and turning it over in that manner. And that was my problem with Will Levis. Was like, I'm watching this film and I'm like, I would have to sit down. Like if I had a meeting with him, I would pull up some of these plays and I would literally sit down and say, all right, Will, walk me through this. Walk me through your decision-making process here. Cause this is bad. Like I can't even understand watching this, what you were thinking, why you would even think that this was an okay decision to make. So you got to walk me through your decision-making process. That's why nobody took him in the first round. It was so bad at times. And the bad outweighed the good. But the talent is there. And if he can figure it out and put it together, they got something. But again, it's one game. I'm not going to go overboard. But I'd much rather you come out guns a-blazing and have that kind of first impression than to come out, stink it up, and have everybody like, Jordan Love did in his first career start against Kansas City. And we go, I don't know about that. Beats the alternative. The Cubone, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. The Cubone writes, bruh, you talking Chiefs, Dolphins, Ravens. Oh, shit, you're right. I didn't even mention your damn Jags. I'm sorry. It's so easy to lead them boys out. I'm not used to them being up here with the elites. I'm not. You gotta give me some grace and some mercy, man. I gotta rewire my brain to think, hey, Jacksonville is for real. And you can't forget, like, I do that with Detroit too. Don't feel bad. Like, you're not the only one. I will sit here and talk about all these teams in the NFC, and I'll forget about Detroit. And somebody have to say, hey, don't forget about the Lions. Oh, shit, yeah, don't forget about the Lions. The Jags are the same way. They're in the same boat for me. I have to rewire my brain to think, hey, don't forget about Jacksonville. You want to talk about all these 6-2 teams? Jacksonville's 6-2 too. And they barely lost to Kansas City in week 2, right? Don't forget about the Jags. You're right. And didn't mention Jacksonville. Put some respect on the Jaguars. You right, Cubone. You got me. Hands up. You got me, bro. My hands are up. You got me. Shame on me. I'm glad you reminded me, because I can't forget about Jacksonville. They are legit. And it's funny because a lot of people out here, Trevor Lawrence is fraudulent. Okay, that's fine. You can think that. I don't. I think he's legit. I think that team is legit, and I think they're well coached by Doug Peterson. And I like what Press Taylor is doing. And I just think this right now, what they've got going on looks good to my eyes. So don't want to leave them out. You are absolutely right. It's easy to do. I'm going to stop. I got to stop disrespecting your boys because they've earned it the hard way. 6-2. So put them in the same discussion with the Chiefs, Dolphins, Ravens, and don't forget Jacksonville as well in the AFC. You are absolutely right, Q. My apologies. All right, so now let's get to Thursday Night Football, and before we get out of here, Titans at Steelers. This one is big because if you're first of all, Kenny Pickett cleared to play, not even on the injury report, so that's good news if you're a Steelers fan. If you're the Steelers, you just can't afford to lose this game. And you're getting a rookie quarterback coming in there, coming off of, this momentous high of his first career NFL start, and not just any old start. 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, deep balls galore, just looking like a stud that everybody missed on in the first round. You've got to go and take the air out of his sails. He is on cloud 9 right now. And you got to pop that cloud that he's on and just watch his ass fall. If you're Pittsburgh. And I expect them to do that. I expect them to, first and foremost, stop Derrick Henry. If you can't do that, then you're going to be in trouble because they're going to run the football and then they're going to go play action fake and they're going to take shots. And with Minkah Fitzpatrick being out, I think that that's going to be a problem for you. So I would definitely say that the first priority in this game is to stop Derrick Henry. Do not let them lean on the run game. after you stop him and Tajay Spears or whoever else they would like to touch the football in a running capacity, then you have to have TJ Watt and the boys get after him, sick him. Make life hell for him on the road in Pittsburgh with the terrible towels flying around and, let him know, hey, you ain't in Tennessee this time. You on the road, big boy. And welcome him. Give him a nice Steelers welcoming. And that's what I see happening is they make sure they jump the run game so that he doesn't have a crutch to lean on. And then they say, all right, Will, you got to spin it, bro. And when he starts to go back to spin it, he meets TJ Watt. And he meets Hightower or Highsmith, excuse me. And it gets ugly for him quick. So we'll see what happens. And I still don't like that Steelers offense. That always gives me pause with them. It does. But this is one of those games where I know the Titans are capable, but all of the Titans wins this season, correct me if I'm wrong, they all have come at home. They don't play the same brand of football on the road for whatever reason. And I'd rather be good at home than on the road. Protect the house. They do that, but they don't play well on the road. And you're going to a team that's desperate. They got to win this game. He had an ugly showing last week against Jacksonville, and their defense has been their catalyst all season long. And if they're going to win this game, it's probably going to have to step up again because I don't trust their offense. But you got a young quarterback making his second career NFL start on a short week. So this isn't like last week where they had a full week of practice to prepare. Everything's kind of muddled and jumbled and condensed. I think he makes some mistakes. He looks human. He didn't last week. I think he does this week. And I think the Steelers win in a low-scoring affair, 20-16 or 23-16, something to that effect. Give me the Steelers. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the 371st installment of the Louie T Network podcast. I thank you guys for joining me. I look forward to chopping it up with you on Friday when I will have all of my week number 9 selections. It's time to get busy. All right. Now, it's time to get live. It's time to represent. Louie T, man, what time is it? I got to show what I'm about at this point. If I can't start winning games at a high clip now, it's over. So it starts on Thursday. I need to get this first one right. It's not an easy one, but I feel good. You need the Steelers to get my week started off the right way. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. If you're a Commanders fan, hopefully you'll join me over on the CNN Live that I'll be starting up here in the next 5 minutes or so. And we'll talk about the day's events. Ron spoke, players spoke, Sam Howell spoke, and got a lot to say about what I heard today and some of the reaction of the fans. Had a chance to sleep on it. And I wanted to know how a lot of the fans felt, and I've been gauging. I've been on socials heavy, just reading. I'm a lurker. You guys know that at heart. So I was reading a lot, just kind of seeing where people stood, and got a lot to say about that too. So hopefully you'll join me over there, and hopefully you got some things that you want to say, and we can talk about those as well. In any event, it's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. Until next time, you guys get out of here. God bless. Good night.
LouieTeeNetwork.